We are your local election headquarters, and today we're talking about the debate over absentee ballots and whether Hoosiers should again be able to vote by mail with no-fault absentee balloting, as we did in the primary. Last week, two former lieutenant governors from opposite sides of the aisle called on the state to make that move, but so far Governor Holcomb has resisted. Our Kayla Sullivan has more. Kayla?
Secretary of State Connie Lawson was unavailable for an interview today, but she said that she would give an update once she has more details to share. But many county clerks say they need this information now so they have maximum amount of time to prepare.
Indiana counties are tasked to host one of the biggest elections during a historic pandemic. However, they've yet to get guidance on how.
Counties need that direction. They've got to be compliant with state law, and they're going to look for that guidance on counties making special provisions.
Former Republican Lieutenant Governor John Mutz isn't holding back his opinions when it comes to why Indiana isn't on board with no-fault absentee ballots in the general election.
I think these local officials are concerned about what Donald Trump may think about it. And that's most unfortunate, because they have a job to do.
He's not buying the president's rhetoric about how mail-in votes promote fraud.
Donald Trump is behind in the polls. He realizes he may lose. He wants an excuse. And if he can say, well, it was rigged, that's an excuse.
Democratic former Indiana Lieutenant Governor Kathy Davis agrees no-fault absentee ballot elections are safe and need to be offered to voters in November. She referenced a recent MIT study out of Oregon, a state where vote by mail has been in place since the year 2000.
2 out of 50 million ballots were suspected of being fraudulent.
What is your reaction to accusations President Donald Trump is the reason Indiana isn't allowing a no-fault absentee ballot election?
Inaccurate.
And can you further describe why? I mean, what would you say to someone who is maybe at high risk for COVID-19 but doesn't fall under the reasons to vote absentee in Indiana legally? Are you asking them to choose between their health and voting safely and the right to vote? And will masks be required at the polls for workers or voters?
Yeah, there's a mask requirement, and Indiana will have a safe and secure and healthy in-person election on November 3rd. But folks need to understand that it is safe to vote.
Now, in a statement, Democratic candidate for governor Woody Myers said denying Hoosiers the right to vote in a safe manner is simply without moral or scientific compass. Voting is the hallmark of our society, he says, and we should be able to vote safely with no excuse absentee voting, just as we did in June. Let's talk about it now with our panel, Rima Shahid, Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Robin Winston, and Mike Murphy. And let's start with Rima, who's the executive director of Women for Change Indiana. Rima, what do you make of the governor's stance on this?
Well, this past Thursday was, of course, the 55th anniversary of the Voter Rights Act. And I think that it is essential that we protect voters, we protect Hoosiers. I don't understand the governor's reasoning and when he says that we can administer a safe and healthy election when everything around us is saying otherwise. I think it's essential that we protect Hoosiers. It's essential that we allow people to vote and participate in our democracy. And I would urge the governor, the election commission, to take Indiana off the list of one of 7 states that has not expanded the no-fault voting in the general election.
Abdul, you had a chance to ask the governor about this at his weekly press conference as well. Any chance he changes his mind here or is compelled to change his mind legally?
Well, I think what the governor will do is, well, what the governor's always done, he'll let the facts and the data drive his decision. Now, please note that when we had absentee voting, or sorry, mail-in voting before, there were no cases of anyone being contracted COVID-19, particularly those folks who actually went to the polls to actually go vote. And so with wearing a mask and social distancing, you can get that done. One thing the governor did say I thought was interesting was the word confinement. If a person is confined, then they can request a mail-in vote, a mail-in ballot. The question is whether that's going to be whether it's self-confined or confined for another reason, which the governor said we should know by early September, within 30 days and some change, with a decision coming out from the federal courts and the attorney general.
Robin, if the courts say no and the governor says no, we're not expanding voting for the fall, is there anything Democrats can do about it?
I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't a request for a federal ruling on this. Rima's right, 55 anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We just put John Lewis in the ground less than 2 weeks ago who fought for voting rights. I've never understood a party that the Republican Party prides itself on freedom, individual liberties. Why not let people have the freedom to vote however they want and the individual liberty to cast their vote by mail? 600,000 people did in the primary. It worked very well, and people were pleased with it. We had record turnout. We should do the same for the fall.
Mike, what's your response? How do you see this issue?
Well, it's tough because I consider the governor, Secretary Lawson, and former Lieutenant Governor John Mutz, who was my boss at one time, to all be very good friends, logical. All three of them have incredible levels of integrity. So I think you'll see Lawson and the governor. You won't be able to slip a piece of paper between those two. They will be very much in line. Mutz is in a different position. He can be an advocate without having the responsibility of administering at this point in his life. I will tell you, though, when I was the county chairman administering, helping administer 4 elections, the only election fraud we found was one Republican woman from Marion County who decided to go vote in Hamilton County as well at her old address. And so I think the chances for voter fraud are very slim. I'm always in favor of the maximum access to voting possible.
Looks like the conventions coming up will be entirely virtual, with Joe Biden and President Trump possibly giving speeches from elsewhere along with their running mates. Abdul, just another sign of how strange this entire election season might be?
Yes, and what's even stranger is the fact that Donald Trump might actually give his acceptance speech from the White House. So that's got a lot of people all worked up, saying how can you use the White House for political backdrops. Well, it's been done before and ever. Matter of fact, actually, it used to be a president didn't even go to a convention. FDR was the first one to do that when he announced his New Deal. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all breaks out. I could see Donald Trump doing something for the White House and Joe Biden easily doing something from Delaware.
It's going to be an interesting election year, no doubt about it. Rima, what about this debate over schools and the coronavirus? Some cases already, Senator Braun this week saying schools should, quote, take a little bit of risk. Some teachers unions continue to raise concerns. This is a pretty tough topic all around.
This is a tough topic. I think that we saw the Indy 500 is now canceled because they're doing the right thing. They're looking at numbers and data, like my friend Abdul talked about. It's important to look at numbers and data, and numbers and data will tell you that the cases are astronomically higher right now than they were when we shut down. So again, looking at numbers and data, we should be safe about this and not force schools to reopen prematurely. I don't think that we're ready. I think that we need a statewide plan. Every single day, there are more and more cases here across central Indiana, and we can't really talk about taking a little risk when it involves lives not just of the students, but of the teachers and administrators. And I would urge Senator Braun to maybe talk to his colleague, Senator Young, who seemed a little bit more empathetic about the topic. And he said that we should put policies aside and we should really look at solutions. And I don't think urging state schools to reopen prematurely is the right solution.
Mike, how do you see this issue, really both of these issues, schools and the Indy 500, a lot of political layers here involved as those conversations continue?
Well, when it comes to the 500, I think they're smart. They're very smart businessmen and women, number one. And number two, they're great civic leaders in their own right. And they recognize the danger. Now, they're not doing anything different, frankly, than what professional baseball, professional basketball are doing, and maybe what the NFL and college football will end up doing down the road. When it comes to schools, I'm always amazed that we forget that the schools are run by independently elected school boards. There's nearly 300 school districts. There's not one size fit all. LaGodia, Indiana is going to be very different from IPS, for example. And so we have to trust the elected officials whose job it is to run the school districts. We can't have a statewide plan. We can't have a national plan for all the school districts. It just does not work. Trust your local elected officials and the parents to figure this out. They are closest to the situation.
Robin, you work with a lot of local school leaders. This is a tough issue.
It's a tough issue. And Mike Braun made a bad comparison. What a 19-year-old freshman at Purdue will do on decision making versus a 7-year-old at Eagle Creek is totally different. It's going to require more action by the teachers. It's going to require more interaction. We know that our teachers are out there trying to do the best they can. A lot of kids right now need that help, need the support of the schools. Putting them in harm's way is not what we should do.
Okay. Robin, Rima, Mike, Abdul, thank you all so much. We appreciate it. Stick around. We'll be right back after this.